And next up, I'm delighted to say I'm joined by Nando Cesarone, President of US Operations at UPS, for an exclusive fireside chat. Thanks for joining us today, Nando.
Thank you, Nick, and great to see you.
Excellent. So to kick things off, can you please introduce yourself and UPS to the audience?
Sure. So, as Nick mentioned, I'm Nando Cesarone. I started with UPS for 31 years and had the privilege of representing this great brand around the world. So, a few years in Asia, a few years in Europe, and now I'm running the U.S. operations. So everything and anything within the United States, and also our UPS airline.
Perfect. So to start off with, obviously, the world of supply chain and logistics is an interesting place to be in right now, with a lot to keep us all busy. To start off with, what would you say are some of the core disruptors which are changing the way supply chain execution is being done?
Sure. So first, I would say we're disrupting ourselves all the time. So we're always looking at, how we can be different and accommodate our customers and be that much better. But I think, what's really prevalent now, and it's been accelerated through COVID, is the fact that there are non-traditional competitors that are entering the scene. And that's mainly driven by demand. So you've got retailers that are trying to run their own transportation networks. You have tech companies that are trying to cobble networks together and provide a service for customers. And then, of course, you've got postal operators where over the last several years, letter mail has dropped off and now are attempting to, come into the package delivery business. And a lot of it is e-commerce. So things that people would order, everyday household goods that would order to their houses and have delivered by these companies.
Perfect. So obviously over the last kind of 18 months, we've seen a huge rise in e-commerce, a lot of brands trying to increase their e-commerce footprint. Just on kind of a holistic level, what would you say are some of the biggest challenges in e-commerce logistics?
Well, hey, look, I guess the biggest one is with all of what I've just mentioned and all these companies and different delivery service models that are emerging, the biggest challenge is really keeping pace with the economic model and making sure that you can produce some value for the company that's offering the service, at the same time keeping the customer satisfied. So what we're handling is a lot more of lightweight type shipments, a broader geography. So in the past, these packages may be going to a warehouse or distribution center, and now we're going direct to people's homes. So that's driving a little more activity. And of course, that puts pressure on the ability to reinvest in your company. So how do you actually make money to continue reinvesting and building your company up?
So based on that, obviously, we're expecting quite an interesting peak season. A lot of retailers, manufacturers are looking to try and streamline their e-commerce logistics processes. What are some of the advice that you'd give to those organizations?
So first piece of advice and what we practice here is you need to plan well in advance. Plan for the unexpected, of course, and then try to create your own capacity. We use a lot of technology. We use a lot of tools to help ourselves navigate and create capacity throughout our network. And the more we can do, the more we can serve, and the more efficiently we can do it. But there's a lot of data that we handle each day. And we use that data for insights that allow us to run our network a lot smoother, use less resources, and still provide the customers with a unique customer experience.
When it comes to some of those technologies, focusing in on that, what are the risks of, I guess, persisting with these outdated supply chain execution processes that we see all around the world, really?
Yeah, well, if we don't innovate and we don't continue to keep up with customer demands and what's happening with competitors, it becomes just old, right? You just cannot operate anymore, and you become outdated. And so customers are really, really demanding, despite what's happening out there, visibility, speed, just being kept up to date. And I know from personal experience when my wife puts in an order online, she expects the item to appear the very second she hits the button. But that's kind of the demand that's coming out from our customers. And so if you don't have technology wrapped around all of that to be able to produce that unique experience, there's trouble. Now here at UPS, we've got a great couple of pieces of technology. One is called Orion, and we use that for driver navigation, but also turn-by-turn navigation to make sure we use limited amount of resources to maximize the efficiency on road. And also allows us to plug into the customer so they can use our My Choice application to actually demand certain unique services that we can deliver in real time so our driver can do that. And then, I think back a couple of weeks, we had a storm here named Ida, and we've got a great set of network planning tools here that we use data to kind of look at our entire network and decide how to shift work around that network. In this case, it was a storm, but in other cases, it could be cost or efficiency or speed of service.
So looking specifically at some of those technologies, which technologies are yielding the highest ROI currently in your supply chain execution processes?
Yeah, so for us, it's really the network planning tool right now. And that's making sure we utilize all of our ground movements, our air movements, which are very expensive, of course. And you're utilizing a lot of resources, right? So you've got a lot of equipment moving, a lot of human beings operating the equipment, fuel that's being consumed. And so the fact that we have brought that in has allowed us to take all the data and how we used to flow shipments across our network and just optimize that. And I would say for our drivers, it's real time. So during the day, dynamic Orion will update, and will give updates based on traffic, based on what order of stops a driver should complete in that day the most efficient way. And what ends up happening is a much better, smoother day for our driver. Safety is enhanced, but also the customer experience.
Definitely. So you mentioned obviously extreme weather, which to a certain extent is predictable. Obviously, there's some supply chain disruptions that are not as predictable. Can you just talk about how these technologies can help for the expected disruptions and also for the unexpected disruptions?
Sure. So basically, Nick, on a dime, we can actually reroute our network to different facilities that aren't impacted by any, controllable or uncontrollable events. So at a moment's notice, we can turn those flows into different areas and avoid any type of activity that would disrupt the overall network. And that really allows us to maintain, if you think about what we do day in and day out, millions of packages every day are delivered and sorted with precision. So 96 to 98% effective. We're not perfect, but that data and those models allow us to work around those types of events and really complete our job with a high amount of success.
So just talking a little bit more broadly about logistics, how have you found the last kind of 18 months on kind of the heightened importance of logistics? Now it's become sort of famous in the mainstream now.
Sure. So, when first bout of COVID, I actually had responsibility for our international business. And I remember describing to the CEO at the time, David, that we had a problem in China and that our operations are disrupted. And from there, it's just been a whirlwind, right? Who would have thought that what exists today would have been the actual scenario? But since then, we expected initially that demand would go down, that business would slow down because of it. And we came in one Monday morning, and it was Christmas, right? It was Christmas in March, and so we were just overwhelmed with business and really had to scale up as quickly as we could to catch it. And those conditions have been caught up now, so it's kind of a normal course of running our business. There are some conditions that still impact the consumer. So you've got a capacity constraint in the air, so air freight and air cargo, because of passenger airlines that are not flying as much as they used to. The ocean is constrained, mainly from Asia coming into the United States and Europe. And then you've got this inventory that's kind of it's not exactly smooth demand anymore. It's kind of crinkled. So we'll go through a period where it's steady state, and then you'll see a spike or a dip in business, and that's really got to do with how inventory is getting restocked into the country and how it's arriving from other countries around the world. So it's we're prepared for anything and everything at this point, and we've learned to live with it, which is okay. And our service right now in the U.S. and around the world is best in class. So we're proud of that, and that's got to do with our 500,000 UPSers around the world that have really worked through this pandemic. And then, Nick, I'd just like to add, we've been a major contributor to making sure vaccines are delivered. By end of year, with a high percent in terms of delivery reliability, about 99 plus percent, we're going to be delivering 1 billion doses by end of year. And, so we have an obligation or a feeling that we're helping, with this pandemic quite a bit.
Can you talk a little bit more about, I guess, the pride that you're seeing as an organization? You mentioned the 500,000 employees there that have navigated some really crazy and unforeseen times.
Sure. Yeah, so a UPSer is a pretty special employee. When times get really tough, I feel that's when this company's at its best and our employees are at their best. So when the challenge came up immediately, there was nobody kind of putting up their arms and saying, hey, we're in trouble and we can't operate it. It actually became a rally cry for everybody to, hey, let's get this done and make sure business continues running and we're able to keep supply chains moving so the world can kind of stay on schedule, right? And that's exactly what they rose to that occasion and continue to do so today.
Based on some of your previous answers, can you just talk about how you've seen logistics change from being kind of this cost center to a product differentiator for retailers, manufacturers all around the world?
Sure. And that's an important distinction for a lot of companies because supply chain and delivery expense it's always been seen as an expense, quite frankly, and not as a differentiator. And if a company really gets it right, you can use your supply chain to really differentiate your services, whether it's internationally crossing borders, making sure you're helping people with tax and customs regulations, making sure the customer experience may be smoother than it could be if you weren't so focused on it. We've got 16 customer journeys that are keyed in on making sure that the service we're providing is beneficial to the recipient, but also the shipper. And there's a value in that. So as that person places the order, that experience was so good that they'll place the order again with that very same e-commerce company.
So we've spoken a lot here about the exciting times that are at place in supply chain and logistics right now. Based on today's conversation, can you just discuss what excites you about the future of the industry?
I think this is the most exciting time in the last 31 years. So there's definitely a shift in how business is done and how households are actually, procuring things for their homes. And I don't know that ever goes back to the way it was. For a company like UPS, we started off in 1907. In fact, we just celebrated 114 years a couple weeks ago. And we started off as a retail company. So we were delivering to, picking up from retail stores and delivering to people's homes. So this is like coming back to, our origins and our founders and what they had to do to build this company up. So it's exciting that we've got this really dynamic engineering group. We have an advanced technology group that has their hands on everything from drones. So we do have drones in the sky today. We do have electric vehicles on the road. We do have autonomous vehicles inside our facilities that are moving packages around. We are automated in our sortation hubs. So about 80% plus of our packages are running through some sort of automation in our sorting hubs. And so we've got our hands on a lot of things that are really exciting. And when I think about 31 years ago and what we're doing today, it's just, the next 30 years is going to be really dynamic for this industry.
Definitely. I mean, I'm really excited to see how things evolve. Really appreciate you taking the time, Nando. Really enjoyed today's conversation. Hopefully we can get you along for another one of these, maybe even in real life in the future.
Yeah, Nick, anytime. I appreciate just talking about our company and what's going on day to day. So thanks very much.